If you think the team lineup here looks a little bit strange, it's because this battle was filmed before the most recent update where all the fleet tags appeared next to all the players' names. Hello, I am Xarkun, and this is World of Warships Legends. Today, we will be taking a look at the Roma, a ship that I do not often cover. In fact, I cannot remember if I have actually covered the ship after it received the buff that it received some time ago. Essentially, the buff was to give it a rolling smoke screen like the rest of the Italian battleships, and that is going to come in handy for us in this match. But the reason I wanted to show you this match, which you may have already seen because it happened on one of my live streams prior to the update, is because I think it's a good example of when you can effectively push in a battleship. And in fact, the entire first half of this game, I think, is going to involve a lot of indecision on my part before we're actually able to make the push that sort of kind of ends up carrying the game, maybe. I don't know. You'll have to let me know what you think in the comment section. But to begin with, we've spawned here south of the Charlie Cap on the north map. One of my least favorite spawns in the game due to this island here that you see to my right. If you go straight forward, you're kind of boxed in by the presence of this island, and you sort of have to sit bow in to whatever's north of sea, which is not always a great idea, particularly if there's an HE spamming cruiser there. Sitting bow into that kind of thing and reversing is a recipe for a reduction of hit points to a catastrophic degree, let's say. There's also a destroyer inside of the cap. We can tell, of course, because it is turning red and we do not see the culprit capturing it. The destroyer, I did not know this at the time, but it was an Elbing. I think I'm going to check the team lineup there, wondering whether it might be the Udachi or the Elbing. The Udachi, probably a bit more of a problem in terms of torpedoes than the Elbing. The Udachi's torpedoes are quite fast and hit quite hard. Elbing's torpedoes hit all right, but they're exceptionally slow. We'll see them sort of gliding through the water like floating sea mines shortly, but if we take a look at the minimap, there's not really a good option for us here. We know the Charlie Cap is occupied by a destroyer. I think this deployment of the smoke screen on my part here was actually perhaps an attempt to sneak into the cap unspotted, but we were picked up by the radar of the Missouri, which is the battleship hanging out north of the Bravo cap near the island there, so the smoke screen's a bit useless. Bismarck is on the other side of the Charlie Cap, on the other side of that island range, actually. My friendly destroyer and battleship appear to be heading over that way to face him, and Montana is now pushing in. Now, I suppose we could push into the Charlie Cap at this point, but doing so, I think, would be inadvisable. Reason for that is because there is I almost said Montana. What's it called? A Minnesota right north of the Charlie Cap. We could, of course, point our bow toward that guy, but the Bismarck over there would have our broadside in such a position. We could not angle against the both of them. Bismarck is a little busy, to be fair, but you can see he's taking time to send his shells toward the relatively low health Minnesota on my team right there behind me. So, a moment of indecision. We can't really push into the Charlie Cap due to the crossfire threat presented by the Minnesota and the Bismarck, not to mention, honestly, the Missouri that is now unspotted between Bravo and Charlie. That would be Crossfire City, plus there's an Elbing occupying the cap, so we sail toward Bravo for a little while, wondering if maybe we can get something done over there. But the Udachi, I think, was spotted exiting the Bravo cap, and since I know the Udachi is over there, I think it's probably going to be an easier proposition to deal with Elbing. Plus, Bismarck is playing the bow tanking reverse game with the blue battleship that's gone around the island. So, of course, he is presenting broadside to the Minnesota and myself. My salvo, for some reason, ricochets twice off the guy. We're up to 13,000 damage so far. I know it is a very impressive number. I'm sure that's what you're all thinking, but don't worry. It'll get a little better. There are the torpedoes from the Elbing, and you can see what I mean about them being very slow floating sea mines. I think they go at like 50 knots, and you do see them well before they hit you, so it gives you plenty of time to dodge. We're convinced that the Elbing is there. The Bismarck is going to be dead. Perhaps now is the time to push. Certainly something has to be done. The enemy has secured the Charlie Cap. They're well on their way to securing Bravo. And, well, it looks like they're knocking on the door of Alpha as well. Plus, they've got about 200 more points than we do. And that lead is only going to continue to grow if they are allowed to occupy any of these capture circles. So, we have to push in, but there are a couple of things we have to keep in mind here because the crossfire threat, so long as that Bismarck is floating, never mind, the crossfire threat is gone. So we really only have to worry about angling toward the Minnesota, and of course we have to worry about the presence of the Elbing, who as far as we know must still be inside of this capture circle. Couple things that can help you with that in an Italian battleship: smokescreen. There are the Elbing's torpedoes, by the way. We didn't really need the smoke screen, but basically the idea here is if we can deploy that smoke screen and we can go dark, then we don't have to worry about being angled to the Minnesota or to the Missouri as we are making maneuvers to dodge torpedoes. Sometimes it looks like destroyers have a very easy time landing torpedoes on battleships, but that's only because the battleship captain has forgotten that he does in fact have an engine with multiple speeds as well as a rudder. If you engage those two things frequently enough, it's easy to dodge torpedoes, especially slow Elbing torpedoes. Elbing spotted, by the way. We're turning in toward the Minnesota and the Missouri. We don't want to be giving broadside to either one of them. Minnesota looks like he might be in the mood to ram, but maybe not. He does sail past us and takes the honorable way out of the battle. Meanwhile, Missouri, who has been hanging around an island as if he was a radar cruiser and not a radar battleship, has stuck himself up against the island and presented broadside. We take a citadel from that broadside, and Missouri is at half health now. Things are not looking good. He's going to have to reverse and start angling, but what we want to do is sail away from the Elbing, who is still alive, pressed up in between those two islands. He's actually got the battleship that decided to go all the way around the island, rushing into him. I don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but I do know Missouri is a little bit too angled for our shells to be effective anymore, so we're going to continue pushing forward. We might not honestly have to push forward this aggressively right now. I was just worried about the Elbing's torpedoes, but it doesn't look like he's too concerned about what I'm doing, given he has two battleships encroaching on his position. In any case, Missouri has extricated himself after a very long time from the unfortunate scenario in which he beached himself, and now he's coming at us. But, like the Minnesota before him, this Missouri is an honorable battleship player. He's not going for the ram. He is attempting to do the drive-by, as am I, but he releases his salvo a little bit too early, and so do we. Bit of a stalemate there. I think I get a little bit more HP out of that exchange, so that's good. But at this point, since we have failed here in succeeding in the drive-by, let's say, we've got to make sure we're still angled against the Missouri. I think Roma does have a sort of step on the back, which is good at catching shells, so it may not be the most ideal kiting battleship. Of course, since the Elbing is spotted, we do need to shoot at him, but the accuracy of the Roma's guns do sometimes let you down, and that right there is the reason I maybe should not have pushed up so aggressively against the Missouri to begin with, because we do take a citadel from whatever battleship over there shot us, and then we take another good chunk from the other battleship. So we got to angle a little bit towards them as well, and ideally take out this Missouri. If his guns are off the board, then there's nothing to worry about on that side of the map, and we only have to angle into one direction. I think the Elbing is gone. That just leaves me and my two destroyer teammates against two battleships and a cruiser. I would say in this scenario, at least in terms of the ship lineup, the blue team most certainly has the advantage. That cruiser could be a problem, though, so we're going to need to eliminate him as soon as possible, particularly since he is a hipper, and he has, 6 km sonar? Very dangerous to the destroyer. I think I'm going on the pause screen here to see what the smoke fire detectability is to know whether it's worth smoking up as I take this shot, but apparently not. So, taking aim at the Hipper, who is broadside to us and doesn't see us, because of course we are spec'd into concealment, and our detectability by C is 12.3, which means the Hipper doesn't know we're there, and so he can't angle in time and takes the Citadel. If you would like to tell me again that it's useless to build into battleship concealment, I look forward to those remarks in the comments section. But anyway, that just leaves the remaining 2 battleships left, and we're going to go up against them. The enemy team is ahead of us on points, and if we screw this up enough, they could still win on this, but we do have 2 destroyers with us, which is going to come in handy. Still, we can do our best to try to carry the game for our team, and that's what we're going to do, especially given the 2 battleships left alive are in the same grid square. This is good for us, because it means we don't have to worry about a crossfire. We can angle toward the exact same place on the map, and really the only thing they can do to us is over penetrations into our superstructure, or of course they can take out our turrets, because the Roma's turrets are in fact made out of plastic, it seems. Well, all Italian battleship turrets are really, because there you see we take out the Marco Polo, who sort of suffers from the same issue. Anyway, we do want to be a little bit careful as we approach the Marco Polo and the last remaining battleship, which I cannot actually remember what it was. Might have been a Bismarck. No, it was something with an easily accessible citadel, I think. There it is. And I believe it is in Iowa. Anyway, shot at the Marco Polo. He is a little bit too angled. We get 3 ricochets and 2 pens there for not a lot of damage. But he does appear to be heading straight toward the island, and I think we should probably be kicking back on the throttle, coming in a little bit too fast here, as the Marco Polo does beach himself and present broadside. Little too angled, I think. Not quite the right angle we would need to dev strike him, so we turn our attention to the Azurlane, New Jersey, not the Iowa, who does manage to citadel us there, which is not ideal, but of course his citadel is also easily accessible. If we could just turn our turrets, there he goes. Drive-by succeeded that time. Hopefully a little bit of redemption from earlier against the Missouri, but of course the idea was to ram the Marco Polo at the same time, and we failed because we had to turn the ship since the turret traverse was kinda, slow. But of course, if you beat yourself against an island and you're stationary in a battleship versus 2 enemy destroyers, well, you might get caught in a terrifying torpedo crossfire. Feels kind of nasty to look at if you're on the Marco Polo's side there, but if you're on the blue team side, that was a nice cross torp from the 2 remaining destroyers. I think they definitely deserve GGs. And this, I guess, is an example of sort of measured aggression. In the Roma, which, even though I feel like I don't like this ship every time I play it, I think, what is my reason for disliking it? And I can't come up with a good answer. So, hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.